All right, guys, I wanted to talk about something today, and I want your comments on this. I want because I don't know what I would do in this scenario, but I think it's something we should all be concerned with, because this particular group of philosophers always seems to have these prophecies that come to fruition, and the scary thing about it is I think that once you are a philosopher who's known for having accurate prophecies, you tend to gain a lot of power and a lot of traction until the day that those prophecies no longer come true, and then, well, people stop listening to you. So, in my opinion, I think that this one will also come true. But anyway, this group is called the World Economic Forum, the WEF. And they recently released a report that said they think that there would be a virus in which there is no vaccine for that would decimate the entire world. It would decimate global society as we know it. Now, that's because our society depends on artificial intelligence, communications, technology, and all of that depends on the internet. And so if you were to shut down the internet, it would shut down society. We've actually seen this recently back on February 5th. The entire country of Italy was shut down. It was shut down because of a virus, which apparently this ransomware is in the US, it's in Canada, it's in a lot of countries around the world. It already is there, has the infrastructure, it exists. But this ransomware was able to shut down the entire TIM Italia communication system. And it knocked the country down to about 25% of internet connectivity. Basically, I think what it did was it messed with the internet's ability to communicate with anything outside of Italy, and that kind of, shut the whole system down. This wasn't the only event that we've recently seen. We also saw it on Bermuda. Bermuda, the home of cryptospiracy, was also taken offline around the same time. And just a few days before Bermuda, the Central Islands also went offline. So you have this theory, this report come from the WEF, and all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere. It's happening, not on a global scale, but the virus is there. The ransomware is there. The infrastructure is there. Maybe maybe somebody's doing a test run. I don't know what the purpose of this stuff was. I do know that that the Italian communications company TIM has been in kind of a brutal buyout scenario. They've had a buyout bid for their communications network. Now, they've been fighting this because currently they're partially owned by the government of Italy, which sees that communication network as a matter of national security, which I can understand because it just got shut down, and so did the whole country. So it's kind of a big deal. But the company that is trying to take it over is actually a U.S. company, KKR, and they're both actually members of the World Economic Forum. Now, I don't know, what KKR is, what their objective here is. Maybe taking it private, getting the government out of it gives some sort of benefits to control and security. I don't know why. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far into it, but I do know that the whole system during this takeout bid went offline, and I do know that it happened in Bermuda and several other places. So I'm curious, if communication shut down. I mean, think about this. You wouldn't have access to money. In fact, I think money in general would become worthless because it all depends on its currency exchange rate. It all depends on people having access to it. If you removed access to 90% of the money out there, it doesn't matter if you had a wad of cash in a safe in your house. Nobody's going to want it because they don't know what to do with it because there's not enough of it to trade, right? It's just a medium of trade. It's just a commoditized version of effort. And so if that becomes worthless, then what else? You wouldn't be able to communicate with family members. You wouldn't be able to pull your GPS out and know where you're going. I have an easy solution for that one. It's called paper maps. Every time we drive cross country, and if you guys watch this channel, we do that a lot. We pick up the most updated road map at each visitor center every time we go into a state. So we have lots of maps. Not giving away anything here, but I think I just did. But anyway, we keep a lot of paper maps, and this is one of those things where that could be a big deal. Not being able to know where you're going, not being able to communicate with family members, not being able to access funding. Hospitals would shut down. They wouldn't know how to treat patients, even if they had their power on. But power grids would most likely go down because they rely on communication networks. There's a lot of things that would fail very, very quickly. Just ask the people in Italy. Just ask the people in Bermuda. Just ask the people in the Central Islands. There's a school system, the Edmonton, I think it was, school system. I'll put it up somewhere. But they got hacked at the beginning of the semester, and their students have had to learn with pen and paper and communication with the teacher, which I suppose isn't that bad. I mean, it wouldn't be, in my opinion, necessarily the end of the world, right? We could all use a little more time in candlelight. We could all use a little more time playing games with our kids, writing letters. I think the post office would probably shut down, though, if communication networks failed. But maybe there would be a way of sending things in the near future. I feel like it would be very hard, very impossible without access to databases to know where to get stuff. And I don't think that a lot of the drivers out there would know where to go without having GPS. So this could be a very serious scenario. And I think that we should take it very seriously because of the fact that everything this group says just happens to happen. And the more that our entire global society is connected through technology, the more important this becomes. Countries have shut down their citizens from access to the internet in order to quell unrest. In May, we saw internet disruptions in Pakistan to stop unrest over the prime minister's rallies. He had been ousted. In June of 2022, internet access was suspended in Bahir, India, over military recruitment protests. In August, the internet was disrupted in Somaliland amid protests over postponed elections. In the same month, Sierra Leone utilized shutdowns to control protests in multiple provinces. Even in September of 2022, Iran shut down the internet due to protests over the death of Masha Amini. The internet is a tool that can be utilized by its citizens for good behavior, and the governments can shut it down at any point in time that they want to gain control. They're doing it to regain control, because by doing that and removing that communication between people, they can no longer coordinate. So there's a lot of things that I think would happen if this came to fruition. The other thing that could happen is if the whole system was shut down and then brought back up online, my guess is that it would be very different when it came back. My guess is that if you wanted to just do a global reset of everything, this would be the perfect way of doing it. But I'm not trying to run into different theories as to why somebody would do it, or different theories as to, that. What I want to know is what you would do. How would you prepare for this type of event? What tools would you want to have on hand? Would excess power supply be beneficial to you? I think it would, because if money failed, your medium of trade, your ability to be successful in that environment would depend on what you have that you can offer other people. Having access to electricity would give you access to having cold storage and things like that. And so it would also give you, access to being on a network when it came back on, maybe ham radios, whatever, the solution might be. If you were to sit there and think through a scenario where everything just went offline, what would you want to have on hand? What would be like the first things that come to you? The first thing that comes to me is my kids. And I feel like this is more of like having a contingency plan with them. Keep your car tank full. And if something like this happens, you get in the car and you drive to this location. And maybe, I have that location at a half a tank from wherever they are. So if they didn't listen to me and they didn't have it full, they could at least try and get there. And I know the route that they would be taking because it's highlighted on a paper map, right? And it's kept in their car so that they always know. And then as a parent, my job is to make sure I have extra fuel storage on hand, make sure that I'm prepared to make a trip to go get them if they're, away in college, or if they're away at, their high school or middle school. If you live out in the country, that could be pretty far. But you'd want to make sure that you had some sort of contingency to bring your family back together. Maybe it's, your parents or, extended family. Maybe you have a plan with them where you all congregate into one particular area. Hopefully that area has land to grow food and things like that, because all of that would come offline. I think if a global system were to shut down, it would take a very long time for a reboot. It would take a long time for a reset. It wouldn't be something that would be immediate, like Italy was down for, a day or two. It would be an extended period of time. So you'd have to plan, for that extended period of time. And after a few days, well, I think people would be going crazy. I don't know about you, but I think that there'd be a lot of chaos going on. And so then you've got to be prepared for that. What are you doing about making sure you have enough food supply on hand? Now, some of you might think, Charlie, you're crazy for even thinking this could ever happen. And maybe, I am. I don't know if it could actually happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. And I think it's a very good possibility because of the report that came out and who put it out. And the other thing you have to remember is that these people who are global elites, there are some people out there who think that they are highly intelligent. Those people think, most of them that really have a lot of faith in what these people are saying, are the first ones that will look at me and say, you're crazy for wanting to be prepared for this type of thing. But they're preparing for it. The people that they're looking up to are preparing for it. They're coming out with scenarios. And so that also puts you in a position of lost control, because they're prepared, you're not prepared. So, one of the things that we have to do to maintain our independence is make sure that we're in check, that we're prepared for these types of scenarios. Do you have a network nearby, neighbors, people that you can turn to when this type of thing happens? And like I said, it could be a scary thing to think about. Some people can look at this, and I'm sure I'm going to get comments down below on this that are very optimistic about the idea. Well, it wouldn't be so bad if everything went down and we had to resort to older times. And there's part of me that doesn't disagree with that. But I do think that there's a transition period there. If something like that were to happen, that would be absolutely devastating for a lot of people. People who weren't prepared for that type of thing wouldn't know what to do with themselves. I feel like those of us who have gardens, those of us who have food, we would be okay in our immediate space, in our immediate habitat. But it doesn't change the fact that you wouldn't have access to family. You wouldn't have access to your kids if they were away from home, and you'd have to figure all of that out. And then long term, what would you do to be able to know what's going on out there in the world? If you're just completely cut off, that could have devastating consequences. So, this was just a quick video. I was reading the report and I was thinking about, within the next 2 years, that doesn't give you much planning time, and if this actually happens like it has, how would we handle it? It's a virus you can't stop. A computer virus that just makes its way through the networks and wipes everything out. All of a sudden, boom, access to nothing. I guess you would spend less time watching Yanasa TV, but, what would you do? How would you handle it? What could you suggest that would help others be prepared in that scenario? And what about those who are not in a position to do a lot for themselves? Is there a way that they could be better prepared as far as their networks go, who they're communicating with, how they get in touch with those people? I think these are things that we should ask ourselves. We've had a lot of weird things floating up in the air lately, and it could come in many different forms. It could come in the form of an EMP. It could come in the form of a virus. It doesn't matter what it is. There are some very powerful, very, intelligent people who are out there that are preparing for these events, and they feel, it's necessary to be ready. So that tells me, I feel like I should also be ready. I feel like I should be thinking through these things, making sure I have those extra resources on hand. And I'm hoping that you guys have some good ideas down below that I'm not thinking of, because it would just help me out. So anyway, throw your comments down there and please share. Let's have a conversation about this. Let's see if we can figure out, some good ideas that would be helpful to a lot of people if this scenario plays out. Now, let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope that they can scare everybody into doing biometrics for the internet so that we're all tracked every time we get on there. And that way they can ensure that nobody's going on there to spread a virus. But I'm being sarcastic. Let's hope that doesn't happen, okay? But what I'm saying is let's just, let's think about these things and come up with some ideas, because I feel like some of you probably have better ideas than I do. Anyway, we have a lot more great content coming up, so stay tuned in and, enjoy the discussion below. Don't get too carried away. People will think we're all crazy. Anyway, have a good week, and we've got some great content coming out this week, so stay tuned for that, especially on Wednesday. Some good content on Wednesday. If I could wink, I'd be trying to do it, but I can't